What unfolds when a CEO dons a disguise in his own grocery store and discovers that an elderly cashier is in dire need of extra hours? Mark Reynolds constructed his grocery empire from the very foundation. What began as a solitary shop 15 years ago has blossomed into a dozen establishments throughout the state. He took great pride in leading a company that cherished its employees. Yet recently, an unsettling feeling lingered in the air. Concerns regarding extended hours, insufficient staffing, and ineffective management were accumulating. His corporate team confidently assured him that everything was under control, yet Mark remained unconvinced. He had to witness the reality firsthand. With the assistance of a skilled disguise team, Mark underwent a remarkable transformation into Gary Mitchell, a middle-aged newcomer characterized by graying hair, thick glasses, and a subtly hunched posture. He donned a loose-fitting uniform, complemented by a name tag that identified him as a trainee. Given his infrequent visits to stores and the fact that he had never encountered most of the staff in person, no one would raise any suspicions. He selected Store 7, a moderately sized establishment nestled in a suburban neighborhood. It was meant to be one of the top-performing stores. Should challenges arise in this place, they were probably more severe in other locations. As he crossed the threshold, pandemonium enveloped him. A lengthy queue twisted its way from the registers, patrons murmuring their discontent over the delays. Workers hurried about, overwhelmed and weary. "Gary, you must be the new guy," remarked a weary shift supervisor, a woman in her late 30s, her eyes shadowed by dark circles. "My name is Lisa. There's no room for small talk." "We're in deep water," Mark acknowledged. "What is it that you require from me, Shadow Evelyn? She excels as our top cashier. Take inspiration from her and keep pace with her progress." Mark noticed Evelyn at Register 3. In her 70s, she had silver hair elegantly pulled back, her hands working with a skillful precision. Even with her quick pace, she exuded warmth, offering a smile to each customer. "Greetings, my dear." She welcomed him with warmth. "Is it your first day?" "Absolutely," Mark remarked, immersing himself in the role, attempting to grasp the nuances of the situation. "Stay close and everything will work out well." For the next few hours, Mark observed her as she immersed herself in her craft. Evelyn moved with speed, yet what truly set her apart was her genuine concern. She inquired about customers' days, assisted elderly shoppers with their groceries, and stepped in for a younger cashier who was having a tough time. However, Mark observed something concerning. Evelyn appeared to be utterly drained. Her hands shook a bit as she reached for things, and she flinched each time she leaned down for a bag. As the shift approached its conclusion, Lisa strolled past. "Evelyn, your shift has concluded. It's time to head home." Evelyn paused, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. "Would it be possible for me to extend my stay for a few more hours?" Lisa arched an eyebrow. "You've completed an entire shift already." "I understand, but I could really use the extra hours," Evelyn said, managing a smile. "If the store requires assistance, I'm more than willing to lend a hand." Lisa surveyed the throng and let out a weary sigh. "All right, but let's not go overboard, shall we?" Mark felt a knot in his stomach. What could motivate a woman of her age to seek additional hours at work? Didn't she have a plan for retirement? Fair compensation. In the small employee lounge, he took a seat next to her during their break. "You put in a lot of hours," he remarked nonchalantly. Evelyn let out a soft laugh. "Must stay occupied. Moreover, my social security barely stretches to meet my rent," causing Mark's chest to tighten. Evelyn shook her head, indicating that a pension was not in the cards. "I spent 12 years here, primarily in a part-time capacity. Part-timers receive no benefits. After my husband's passing, I found myself needing to take on additional hours just to keep my head above water." Mark experienced a tightness in his throat. After 12 years, she continued to face challenges. He established this company to create opportunities, not to let dedicated employees struggle to make ends meet. Just as he was about to continue, a booming voice cut him off. "Time to get back to work." A man in his 40s stepped into the lounge, donning a manager's badge. Todd was the name displayed on his tag. His expression was one of annoyance, as if the mere presence of the employees was a burden to him. Evelyn sprang to her feet. Indeed, Mark complied, observing as Todd scrutinized him from head to toe. Are you the newcomer? Indeed, Gary, Todd dismissed with a scoff. I trust you're keeping up the pace. We can't afford to carry any unnecessary burdens. Mark bit down on his tongue. He required further insight before forming any conclusions. Yet there was an unsettling quality to Todd's tone that sent shivers down his spine. Upon their return to work, Mark silently vowed to himself. He was determined to uncover the truth behind the happenings in this store, and when the moment was right, he would set things right. Mark found his groove within the store, seamlessly integrating as just another staff member. He focused intently on his tasks, maneuvering carts, packing groceries, and aiding customers, all the while keenly observing his surroundings. As he delved further, an increasing number of fissures revealed themselves. Todd, the store manager, seemed to fade into the background whenever there was work to be tackled. However, whenever he showed up, it was solely to point out flaws, never to offer assistance. He criticized staff for small errors, issued commands with a sense of urgency, and showed favoritism in scheduling, allowing his preferred employees to enjoy easier shifts while others, like Evelyn, struggled to find hours wherever possible. In the days that followed, Mark observed that Evelyn wasn't the sole one in distress. A young individual named Miguel, fresh from high school, toiled through consecutive shifts yet found himself perpetually underpaid on his paycheck. He shared with Mark his fear of speaking up, revealing that Todd had warned him about reducing his hours if he voiced too many complaints. Tara, a dedicated single mother managing the bakery department, found herself unexpectedly covering extra shifts when Todd opted to call in his favorites for office tasks, rather than overseeing the floor. She was on the verge of losing her daycare spot due to the erratic hours. Mark began to compile a mental inventory of all the issues at hand. Workers found themselves burdened with excessive tasks, receiving inadequate compensation, and feeling hesitant to voice their concerns. Meanwhile, Todd managed the store as if it were his own realm, putting in just enough effort while making sure his friends received the finest care. Mark understood the importance of witnessing Todd's leadership in action, so he intentionally made an error. In the midst of a particularly tumultuous afternoon, he mistakenly rang up a customer, neglecting to apply a discount on a bulk item. The customer maintained a courteous demeanor, yet Todd, who had been observing from a distance, noticed the error. Rather than addressing it with composure, he charged over in a fit of anger. "Are you serious, newcomer?" Todd exclaimed, his voice rising to ensure all nearby could hear. "We cannot afford this level of incompetence right now." Mark maintained a steady tone. "A minor error easily rectifiable. Do you really believe I have the luxury to wait for you to sort this out? Your pace is causing a delay in the line." Mark noticed the way Evelyn flinched next to him, as well as how Tara, busy restocking a display nearby, kept her gaze lowered, deliberately avoiding any eye contact. Todd let out a deep, exaggerated sigh. "Listen up, it's time to make way. Evelyn, you handle this for now. I'll address him later." Mark tightened his jaw but complied. He observed Todd stepping behind the register, offering a forced smile to the customer while quietly grumbling about the foolishness of the new hires. Later, in the break room, Todd approached him with intent. "Text, you need to get it together quickly, Gary," Todd said, arms crossed. "I find it challenging to engage with those who take their time to grasp concepts." Mark locked eyes with him. "I've spent a few days here and I've observed something intriguing." Todd's lip curled, revealing a lack of patience for much of anything. "Do you have an issue with my methods?" Mark suppressed a grin. If only Todd realized the identity of his conversation partner. "It was merely an observation," Mark stated calmly. Todd let out a derisive laugh. "Here's yet another insight. Your persistent questioning won't serve you well for much longer." Mark observed him depart, his frustration simmering to the surface. He had witnessed more than enough. Evelyn, Miguel, Tara, and countless others faced hardships as Todd misused his authority. He found it impossible to remain quiet. The following morning, Mark made his entrance bright and early. He strode by the employees, moved through the aisles, and headed directly into the manager's office. Todd lounged inside, his feet propped up on the desk, savoring a cup of coffee. Todd hardly lifted his gaze. "What is it that you seek, Gary?" Mark closed the door softly, sealing off the world outside. "I would like to discuss the way you treat your employees," he stated, his tone steady yet resolute. Todd let out a derisive snort. This is bound to be interesting." Mark lifted his hand, removing the heavy spectacles and the artificial gray wig. He adjusted his stance, his voice shedding the feigned timidity he had assumed. He stated, "I am not Gary. My name is Mark Reynolds. This company is mine." Todd's complexion faded to a ghostly hue. The coffee cup slipped from his fingers, cascading its contents across the desk. Yet he appeared oblivious to the chaos unfolding around him. "What are you?" Mark leaned in, placing his hands on the desk with intent. "For the past few days, I've observed you drive the store into decline," he remarked, his tone calm and unwavering. "Your behavior towards employees has been unacceptable. Favoritism and neglect towards those who truly contribute to this organization cannot continue. I've reached my limit." Todd parted his lips, only to seal them once more. He scanned the surroundings, seemingly in quest of an escape from this dialogue. "I had no idea it was you," he stammered as Mark's eyes narrowed. "That is the issue at hand. People should not be treated differently based on their identity." Todd swallowed hard, realizing that having a CEO overseeing everything shouldn't be necessary for him to perform his duties correctly. "Listen, I was merely—" Mark straightened and said, "Save it. Your time here has come to an end, effective immediately." Todd's jaw fell open in disbelief. "Hold on, you can't just let me go like that." "I can and I will," Mark replied with a matter-of-fact tone. "You will be escorted out by security. Your last paycheck will be taken care of, but you won't be returning to this store again." Todd hesitated for a brief moment before sinking into silence. He must have come to understand that there was little value in engaging in a debate. Mark swung open the office door, gesturing for a security officer who was close by. "Ensure he departs the premises," Mark directed. When Todd stepped outside, an eerie hush enveloped the store. Workers stood in disbelief, some casting sidelong looks at one another, while others struggled to conceal their sense of relief. Mark pivoted to confront them. "Attention, everyone," he declared, his voice resonating throughout the store. "My name is Mark Reynolds, and I am the owner of this company. For the past week, I have been working incognito here." Whispers rippled through the gathering. Evelyn's gaze expanded in surprise, while Miguel stood in stunned silence, his jaw slack. Mark pressed on, stating that he arrived in search of the truth, and what he encountered was simply intolerable. He surveyed the expressions surrounding him. Some appeared anxious, while others radiated optimism. Today marks a new beginning. The air in the store hung heavy with disbelief, a stillness that lingered before hushed murmurs began to ripple through the employees. Mark noticed the glimmers of skepticism reflected in their gaze. Some appeared uneasy, while others seemed at ease. Evelyn, positioned by the registers, grasped the edge of the counter, seeking a sense of stability. Miguel shifted on his feet, his gaze flickering between Mark and the exit, as if he were bracing himself for a reprimand simply for being a witness to this moment. Mark inhaled deeply, finding his composure. "I understand you all have inquiries," he stated, his tone steady yet resolute. "Before I respond, I must clarify something first. This store, along with every other in my company, must be a space where employees receive the respect they deserve, where diligence is acknowledged and valued, rather than taken for granted." A handful of employees cast cautious looks at one another, silence enveloping the room. "This past week, I've encountered situations that clash with the vision of the company I created," Mark continued, moving back and forth slightly. "I have observed individuals laboring tirelessly while receiving inadequate compensation. I've observed individuals hesitant to voice their concerns, fearing they might lose their hours or, even more daunting, their positions. I have witnessed a manager who placed his own comfort above the welfare of his team. Evelyn let out a sharp breath, her shoulders easing a bit. Miguel averted his eyes, his jaw clenching with tension. That comes to a close today. Lisa, the shift supervisor, advanced with careful deliberation. Excuse me? What implications does that hold for us? Mark focused his gaze on her. It signifies transformation. In effect, right away. He allowed his eyes to scan the room filled with employees. To begin with, I'm eager to hear your thoughts. Fear of retaliation is a thing of the past. If there's an issue, I would appreciate it being pointed out to me. A soft whisper spread among the crowd. Mark glanced over at Lisa. So, you've been managing the store while Todd has been tucked away in his office, right? Lisa paused for a moment, then gave a slight nod. I made an effort to maintain order, yet he dictated the timetable and the finances. Not much was within my reach, Mark acknowledged. That evolves as well. Lisa's eyes widened in surprise as she realized she was now the acting manager. Excuse me? You've been carrying out the responsibilities all along. Now you will undertake this role officially, empowered to make genuine decisions, Mark stated. We are currently evaluating compensation. Employees will no longer face discrepancies in their paychecks. Equal treatment for all when it comes to hours. All individuals in this organization will receive equitable treatment. Miguel exhaled sharply, as though he had been restraining his breath. Tara, the dedicated worker at the bakery, offered a subtle nod. Evelyn finally found her voice. Mr. Reynolds, are benefits included in that? Mark glanced at her, sensing the gravity in her tone. Indeed, he replied without a moment's pause. Eliminate the practice of part-time employees clocking in full-time hours without receiving benefits. We are revising our policies to guarantee that dedicated employees like you receive the recognition and benefits you truly deserve. Evelyn's lips quivered ever so slightly. She blinked quickly and offered a slight, nearly incredulous nod. Mark continued, I understand that words have their limits. Beginning today, the corporate team will be evaluating each store, engaging with employees, and ensuring that everyone receives the necessary support. A moment of quiet lingered before Lisa straightened, her voice now more assured. Thanks a lot. Mark locked eyes with her. I appreciate your efforts in keeping this place intact when others turned away. A hesitant, measured wave of applause began to emerge from the rear of the assembly. It wasn't boisterous, but it was heartfelt. Certain employees appeared to be uncertain, as though they were waiting to confirm the authenticity of the situation. Mark grasped that concept. Transformation requires patience. Building trust would require more time. Yet it would come to pass. As the employees gradually made their way back to their tasks, Mark approached Evelyn. She stood by her register, eyes fixed on the screen, her hands trembling ever so slightly. Are you all right? He inquired gently. She gazed up at him, her eyes shimmering with emotion. I never imagined this moment would arrive. Mark sensed a tightness constricting his throat. It's unfortunate that you had to endure such a lengthy wait. Her smile was modest yet sincere. He nodded, acknowledging that it's preferable to arrive late than not at all. If you ever find yourself in need of anything, just come to me, all right? Evelyn let out a soft laugh. I will definitely hold you accountable for that. Mark grinned, then shifted his gaze to absorb the entirety of the shop. There remained tasks to complete. For the first time in ages, it seemed as though the company he had created was truly heading in the right direction. Mark was quick to act. Once Todd was shown the door, he dedicated the remainder of the day to truly hearing his employees. He settled into a chair with Lisa in the back office, reviewing the schedules and payroll records that Todd had managed. The more they excavated, the more dire the situation became. Workers were logging hours without compensation. Requests for overtime were being dismissed without explanation, and Todd was handpicking raises for his preferred employees, while dedicated staff like Evelyn struggled to make ends meet. Mark promptly addressed the necessary corrections. The payroll has been revised to guarantee that each employee is compensated for their true hours worked, and those who were underpaid will receive their back pay accordingly. Evelyn and her colleagues, previously categorized as part-time despite their full-time efforts, have now been officially transitioned to full-time status, complete with benefits. As Mark drew near to Miguel, the timid stalker who had hesitated to voice his concerns, he took care to offer him reassurance. Mark assured him, "You're receiving every penny you earned," as he handed over a report detailing the adjustments to his paycheck. "From this point forward, if you encounter any issues, you should approach Lisa. If it remains unresolved, you can approach me," Miguel nodded. Yet the doubt in his eyes indicated to Mark that it would require time for him to genuinely believe that things had improved. Mark held no resentment towards him. In the days that followed, Mark remained in the store, collaborating closely with his team. He filled the shelves, operated the registers, and assisted in the bakery. News traveled fast throughout the organization regarding the events that unfolded at Store 7. Other store managers began to pay attention. Certain individuals embraced the changes. Mark sensed that some were anxious about the potential consequences of his next visit to their place. That was precisely what he desired. Corporate teams were sent to each store in the chain to carry out employee interviews and assess management practices. A number of additional problem managers were recognized and eliminated. Mark emphasized that toxic leadership would not be tolerated in his company. In their stead, committed individuals such as Lisa were elevated. One evening, after a long shift, Mark discovered Evelyn in the break room, quietly enjoying tea from her thermos. She appeared weary, yet for the first time since their acquaintance, there was a lightness about her that suggested she was unencumbered. "You're still here," she remarked, a faint smile gracing her lips as he settled into the chair opposite her. Mark responded, ensuring everything was functioning as it ought to be. Evelyn observed him intently for a moment before giving a nod of understanding. "Most individuals in your situation wouldn't have taken this step." Mark reclined in his chair. "Many individuals in my role remain oblivious to the true happenings within their own establishments." She laughed softly. "Indeed, you picked that up quickly." He paused before continuing. "Evelyn, I have a question for you." She arched an eyebrow. "Proceed. With your full-time status and benefits secured, do you believe you'll finally find the chance to ease up a bit?" Evelyn smiled, though her expression carried a hint of bittersweetness. "I believe that to be the case. It will require some adjustment, not fretting over each additional shift." She paused. "Yet, I find myself pondering what I would do if I weren't in this place. I truly enjoy my work. I simply wish to avoid the struggle of working just to get by." Mark nodded. "That is precisely how it ought to be." He had one final task to attend to before departing from Store 7. On the following morning, he assembled the staff prior to the store's opening. They formed a semicircle, gazing at him with anticipation. Mark expressed his gratitude to everyone. "For your unwavering dedication, for your relentless effort, and for remaining loyal to this organization even in times of leadership shortcomings." He allowed his eyes to roam across the room. "I would like to express my apologies as well. It shouldn't have required me to go incognito to uncover the truth of what was unfolding here. I take full responsibility for that. I assure you it will not occur again." A few employees exchanged glances, but this time it wasn't doubt in their eyes. It was something akin to hope. Mark continued, "I have one more announcement to make. An employee advisory board is set to be launched. Every quarter, I will convene with representatives from various stores and my corporate team to evaluate our successes and challenges. Decisions will no longer be made without considering the insights of those who are directly engaged in the tasks." Lisa exhaled softly, a hint of relief washing over her. Tara, the bakery worker, offered a deliberate nod of approval. Even Miguel, who had once been wary of embracing any shift, appeared more open. Evelyn broke the silence first. Mark smiled, appreciating the suggestion. "I was really looking forward to that response because I would love for you to be among the initial representatives." Evelyn's eyes grew large with surprise. "Who, me?" Mark remarked that you've been here for 12 years. You've observed the shifts that have occurred, both positively and negatively. During my time here as Gary, you were the individual that employees held in the highest regard and trusted above all others. That's precisely the person we require in those discussions. Evelyn blinked several times, then released a gentle laugh. Well, I guess I can't refuse the boss, Mark smiled. Excellent. I was determined to get a positive response. The staff chuckled, and for the first time since his arrival, the ambience seemed to brighten. As the store opened for the day, Mark observed his employees bustling about with a fresh vigor. Lisa was busy arranging the morning stock, while Miguel engaged in conversation with a coworker as they prepared the displays. Evelyn made her way back to her register, this time free from the tension in her shoulders that had weighed her down previously. Mark understood that the journey ahead was long, and transformation wouldn't occur in an instant. Yet this marked the beginning of a brighter future. This time, he would ensure he remained focused on what was truly important. Mark delayed his return to the corporate office. Instead, he dedicated the following weeks to visiting his other stores, unexpectedly and without prior notice. He sought to determine whether Store 7 was merely an anomaly or if the issues were more pervasive. What he discovered was discouraging yet expected. At various sites, he discovered additional managers akin to Todd people, who had become complacent in their roles, wielding fear and favoritism to uphold their authority. The workers at these establishments were drained, inadequately compensated, and hesitant to voice their concerns. In contrast, some exhibited remarkable leadership with managers who truly valued their teams. The operations of these stores flowed seamlessly, thanks to employees who felt appreciated and customers who recognized the distinction. Mark realized that the issue extended beyond a handful of ineffective managers. It was deeply rooted in the system itself. At some point during the growth of his company, he had become disconnected from the culture he had diligently nurtured. The principles he had once fiercely upheld had diminished, supplanted by strategies that favored efficiency and cost reduction at the expense of individuals. He recognized the error he had made, and he was determined to make it right. An urgent meeting was convened at corporate headquarters, gathering all regional managers, district supervisors, and senior executives. The atmosphere in the conference room was charged. Whispers of the incident at Store 7 had reached many ears. Some exhibited apprehension, while others took a protective stance. A select few, those whom Mark held in high regard, appeared relieved that action was finally being taken. Mark positioned himself at the forefront of the elongated table, his hands gently placed on the gleaming surface. "I want to clarify something," he started, his tone unwavering yet resolute. "We do not operate a business that views employees as expendable resources. That stops here." A handful of managers shared knowing looks. A middle-aged man with sharp features cleared his throat. "With all due respect, Mark, these stores have operated this way for years. Staff members enter and exit. It's simply part of the retail landscape." Mark's eyes fixed intently on him. "That is the issue, Steve. We ought to focus on establishing lasting careers rather than creating a cycle of constant departures and arrivals." Steve adjusted his position in the chair, remaining silent. Mark went on, "I've dedicated the past few weeks to my stores. From my perspective as an employee, I've witnessed the unfolding events up close. I've seen admirable individuals fight to get by, committed employees hesitant to voice their concerns because their supervisors wield their schedules as leverage. I have observed instances of payroll manipulation, favoritism, and an utter absence of accountability." He allowed the words to linger before proceeding. "Effective immediately, we are reorganizing our management structure. Each store manager will participate in a comprehensive performance evaluation. Individuals who misuse their authority will be dismissed. There will be no exceptions." The atmosphere in the room became increasingly charged. Several managers fidgeted in their seats. Some chose to hold their tongues, curious about the unfolding situation. "We are revamping our payroll practices. Enough with the unpaid hours. Say goodbye to unpredictable scheduling shifts that cause chaos for employees. Every full-time employee will be granted the benefits they rightfully deserve." One of the district supervisors, a woman named Rachel, leaned in closer. "Mark, these are significant transformations. The expense to the company will be substantial," Mark acknowledged. "I understand, but it doesn't concern me. His tone was definitive, allowing for no debate. This organization was founded on the principle that treating individuals with respect fosters improved business outcomes. At some point in our journey, that slipped away from us. I refused to allow this to persist. Rachel observed him intently for a moment before giving a nod of understanding. Then I'm in agreement. One after another, the remaining supervisors trailed behind. Some paused, visibly concerned about the implications for their own positions. Yet Mark remained indifferent to their unease. He was dedicated to mending what was damaged. As the meeting concluded, the message became unmistakably clear. Transformation was inevitable. It was unfolding, and it was unfolding in this very moment. In the coming months, the company underwent a remarkable transformation. Store managers who relied on intimidation and favoritism were succeeded by leaders who genuinely appreciated their teams. Payroll systems underwent modifications to guarantee accurate compensation. There was a notable decrease in employee turnover alongside an increase in customer satisfaction. Mark ensured he remained engaged. He frequented stores not as a covert operative but as a leader who paid attention. He engaged with workers, conducted town hall-style meetings, and ensured that employees felt heard. One afternoon, several months after his experience at Store 7, he returned to that very place. Evelyn remained at her register, yet there was something distinctly altered about her this time. Her eyes held no weariness, and her shoulders bore no strain. She continued her work, driven by desire rather than obligation. Mark stood patiently by her line, biding his time until she concluded her interaction with a customer before making his move. She lifted her gaze and smiled broadly. "Ah, look who it is, the boss himself," Mark said with a smile, "just stopping by to see how things are going." Evelyn gave a satisfied nod. Indeed, that would be wise. He let out a soft laugh, then spoke in a quieter tone. "How has everything been going?" Evelyn surveyed the store, her gaze returning to him. "Improved. Lisa is excelling in her role as manager. Individuals are no longer hesitant to request time away from work. Timetables are just... At long last, I had the chance to enjoy a weekend away from the grind for the first time in years." Mark experienced a wave of relief wash over him. "That's the kind of feedback I appreciate." She observed him intently for a moment before she spoke once more. "You truly meant it, didn't you? Every one of those assurances." Mark gave a slight nod. "I certainly did." Evelyn beamed. "In that case, you're on the right track." He let out a breath, the burden of the last few months pressing heavily upon him. The journey had been far from simple. There had been opposition, reluctance, and numerous instances where he questioned whether he was making the correct decision. Yet, as he stood there witnessing the contrast up close, he was certain of one thing. Every moment had proven its value.